Well, hey guys, how good is peer pressure? Well, most of the time anyway. Well, you've got your good peer pressure, don't you? Maybe you've got somebody sitting there not wanting to eat a chili, but you've got a whole room full of people chilling, eat it, eat it. And sure enough, they take that bite because everybody's cheering them on. Maybe you've come home from school and you're begging your parents to buy you the latest model iPhone because everyone else has one. I just want to fit in. You don't understand. Hey, but peer pressure, I think we all know it has a bit of a darker side too. It's like, what happens when the people you look up to, they want you to do something that might get you in a bit of trouble? Hey, go tell that teacher over there they're an idiot. And then you can sit with us at lunch. On the one hand, you're going to get in trouble. It's a stupid thing to do. But on the other hand, you have a desperate desire to fit in. You want these people to like you. You want them to admire you. We won't want to be accepted by our friends. And hey, in this chapter of the Bible we read tonight, we heard about a few guys who, well, they didn't really fit in, even though the stakes were much bigger than just who they had lunch with. Hey, but first we're just going to back up a little bit and find out what exactly the big deal was. Come with me back to the Bible in chapter 3 there, verse 1. Chapter 3, verse 1, it says this. It says, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high, 6 cubits wide, and set it on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Now, if you've been with us during this term, you might remember Nebuchadnezzar, he was the king of Babylon, which was the world power at the time. He's conquered the Jews and a whole lot of other countries as well. And hey, Nebuchadnezzar, he wants everyone to know how powerful he is. So he makes a statue, 60 cubits high, 6 cubits wide. And for those of you wondering, 60 cubits, that's about 30 meters. Now, just for a bit of representation, I'm just under 2 meters tall. So it's actually about 15.3 of me stacked on top of each other. See, not only is this statue massive though, it's actually made of solid gold. And this statue, it's meant to represent Nebuchadnezzar and Nebuchadnezzar's God. And so because of that, it's not just enough for him to make a statue. If you look in verse 2 and 3, you'll see that he plans this massive dedication ceremony. It's a huge party for the whole city to attend. And even more on top of that, he makes a new law to go along with it. Come along with me to verse 5. In verse 5 it says this. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music, you are to fall face down and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. See, this wasn't just a quick, look at me, I'm so wonderful moment from Nebuchadnezzar. This whole thing, it's a massive declaration. Nebuchadnezzar, he's there, he's saying, I have the most powerful God. I am the most powerful person alive. You will worship me or you will die. And hey, so most people did. Because when everybody else around you starts bowing down, nobody wants to stick out. Nobody doesn't want to be the guy who doesn't fit in. Except for these three guys. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. See, these three guys, they disagree with Nebuchadnezzar. They don't want to worship him because instead they serve their God, the God of the Bible. And so when the band starts playing the music, everyone else around them starts to bow down and worship this statue. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they all stay standing. I think we actually just need to appreciate just how dangerous of a thing this was for them to do. It wasn't like there was only a few people bowing down, most people couldn't be bothered. They were the standouts. They were the only ones. Let me show you an example. And I wonder if you might have seen this photo before. It was taken in 1936. So this is actually a photo from when Hitler was at the height of his power as leader of the Nazi Party. And the whole crowd is there listening to one of his speeches. And they're showing their devotion and commitment to him with the Nazi salute. Well, except for this one guy, August Landmesser. He just stands there with his arms folded, refusing to salute, refusing to go along with the crowd. Now, ultimately, this man here, he's eventually imprisoned for his defiance of the Nazi Party, and later in his life, he is killed. And hey, that's the very real danger that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego face. And if you've been with us since we started this series, you'll know Nebuchadnezzar, he's the sort of guy, he doesn't hesitate when it comes to killing people who don't do what he wants. But it's not even just Nebuchadnezzar the king they have to worry about, because take a look at verse 8 with me. Verse 8 says this. It says, "At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews." See, it's not like they had to be standing in front of the king to get caught out. It's actually the astrologers, the people who Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego work with. They dobbed them into the king. Because see, standing up for God, it's not a popular option. And in fact, it's an unpopular option. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they all knew this. And I think at some level, we know this too. So if you are somebody here tonight who follows Jesus, let me ask you a question. Do your friends, do your family know that you follow God? Or is it easier to hide it? I mean, there's a chance you might get laughed at if you say something. Maybe you'll lose your friends if you tell them that you're a Christian. See, the world today, it doesn't have time for God. And in fact, in many cases, it's actually against God. If you're a Christian, you can have people calling you names. They're telling you, why bother waste your time on a Friday night or a Sunday morning going to church, going to youth? Come on, hang out with us instead. We can have fun. We can do what we want, live our best life. Don't worry about that God stuff. That's for all those other losers. See, there's this major peer pressure to say no to God. Say no to God and you'll fit in just fine. But to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, there's only one answer. And it wasn't easy. See, they knew what the people they worked with, what their friends were all going to say. They knew they would likely get dobbed into the king. They knew that the king would be angry with them. They knew there was every chance that they would die, a horrible death. But they still decided to stand up for what they knew was right. They only wanted to worship their God, the God of the Bible. And hey, sure enough, as you see in this story tonight, Nebuchadnezzar, he finds out about them, and boy, is he angry about it. He calls the three men in to give them one more chance, a promise they will die if they don't conform. And at the same time, he issues a challenge as well to their God. Take a look with me at verse 15. Verse 15 says this. "Now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" See, do you see what King Nebuchadnezzar is saying there? He's going, guys, final chance. You can worship my statue and my gods today, or you can die today. That's your choice. Oh, and by the way, when you make your choice, remember that I am the most powerful man alive. Remember, my gods are the most powerful. Do you really think that your God, the God of the Bible, he's more powerful than me, Nebuchadnezzar? Hey, but look at their response in verse 16 to 18. Verse 16 to 18 says this. Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image that you have set up." See, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they know that God is more powerful. They know that God can save them, but they also know that he might not. See, to them, following God is the greatest thing they can do. They see that God is all powerful. They see that God is loving and kind. They see that God is the creator of the universe, that he deserves all the glory and all the honor. They know that God is the one true king. And yet they know that there's a cost to following God. Sometimes ridicule, sometimes hatred, or in this case, death. But for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, this is a cost they will gladly pay to follow God. So they politely tell the king, we will only worship our God. Now, of course, this doesn't sit well with Nebuchadnezzar. He is furious. He calls his soldiers. He has them tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego on the spot. He orders the furnace to be heated 7 times its normal temperature. He just doesn't want these guys killed. He wants them burned to a crisp. This furnace, it's so hot, in fact, the soldiers that come, tie them up and throw them in, they die just from the heat. And I know a whole bunch of you were at the youth bonfire a couple of weeks ago. And you know how when you're at the bonfire, you need to find that sweet spot? You get too close and all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, you can feel yourself starting to burn even though the fire's all the way over there. Just from that heat that they got from getting near the fire to throw them in, that was enough to kill these soldiers briefly standing too close. And after all that, here comes, well, what should be Nebuchadnezzar's moment of triumph. See, Nebuchadnezzar, he's sitting there and he looks into the furnace and he's expecting to see 3 charred bodies. The ultimate warning to everyone, you do not disobey King Nebuchadnezzar. Instead, he looks in and he sees not just 3, but 4 people in there, walking around, unharmed. He recognizes that the 4th person is sent by God. This is a display of God's power. He can't believe it. Remember back in verse 15, Nebuchadnezzar issues the challenge. What God can save you? What God could be more powerful than me, King Nebuchadnezzar? The king was certain that he was the most powerful. He was certain he would win this challenge. But instead, in this moment, Nebuchadnezzar realizes that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were right. God really was more powerful. So what does he do? Take a look at verse 26 to 28 with me. It says this. It says, Nebuchadnezzar approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair on their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their God. See, he calls Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego out of the fire. It says not a hair was singed. They didn't even smell of smoke. I mean, you know how you can always tell that somebody's been out and about near a campfire? There's always that lingering smoky smell. You're like, you've been near a fire, haven't you? But this wasn't just a close call where somehow these guys, they'd managed to escape the furnace before they'd got burned up. No, it was like they'd never even been anywhere close to a fire. This wasn't some back and forth struggle between the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and the God of Nebuchadnezzar. There's this back and forth, and eventually their God came out on top. No, this was it was clear that God, he has power Nebuchadnezzar couldn't even dream of. And Nebuchadnezzar, he acknowledges that. He calls the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the God of the Bible, he calls him the Most High God. He issues a decree. People need to respect God, not say anything negative against him. But hey, notice also what he doesn't do. See, Nebuchadnezzar, he knows he's lost, but he still isn't ready to give up the power that he has. He's just seen the power of God firsthand. He knows who God is, but he doesn't say, my God. He says, the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He knows who God is. He sees his power, but he's still more concerned about himself, about what he wants, about how other people see him. So, hey, to finish up tonight, let me ask you a question. What's your response to God in the good times and in the bad? And if you do follow God, How do you react when your family and your friends question you on it? When people ridicule you for daring to believe the Bible? When they laugh at you for following God's laws, telling you instead to come on out, have some fun, live for yourself? Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, are you willing to stand up for what you believe in? Do you follow Jesus even if it means losing your friends? Even if it means having people hate you? Or do you decide to follow the crowd? Just ignore taking that stand. You cave in and you do what your friends want you to do, even though you know it's wrong. You decide to skip church, to skip youth because you don't want people to think you're some kind of do-gooder loser. You decide not to mention the fact that you're a Christian at school because it's hard. And hey, it is hard to be a Christian. I get it. I really do. But think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were there willing to lose their lives, to stand up for Christ, to follow him, even when it was tough, because they knew that God, he's a God worth following. Are you willing to stand for your faith, even when it's difficult? And hey, maybe you're here tonight and you're not a Christian. You don't follow Jesus. And hey, maybe like Nebuchadnezzar, you can see that God exists, that he has power, but he's just not for you. You're more concerned with living for yourself, how the world sees you. You want to be in control of your own life. Well, God is more powerful. He is the one who is ultimately in control, the ruler of everything. He is worth following, and the offer is there for you to follow him. It won't always be easy, but I can promise you that it will always be worth it. So let's pray together. Yeah, dear Lord, thank you that we can look at your word tonight, that we can see what it has to say to us about who you are and about following you. Lord, I just do pray that you'd help us to want to follow you even when times are hard. Lord, I just do pray that, if anyone here tonight does not already follow you, that you would show them that you are all-powerful, that the cost is far outweighed by the benefits. Lord, I just do pray all this in your name. Amen.